Hello, and welcome to today's training on how to create box plots. You'll learn how to create a traditional box and whisker plot, as you see here, with your maxima, your upper quartiles, your medians, lower quartiles, and minima. And you'll also learn how to create a hybrid on the box plot, or otherwise known as a Tableau box plot in this training, where you can see each individual point. Now, to understand what we're looking at here, we have different subcategories as listed down here on the x-axis, and we can see varying profits within each state. We can see that the profitability, for instance within pens and art supplies, is very concentrated around this zero amount. But here we can see over in the office machines, we have a very wide range of profitability from negative 17,000 in Washington all the way up to 42,000 in Alabama. And we can see everything in between. So today you'll learn how to create both this Tableau box plot and a traditional box plot. Let's go ahead and start with a Tableau box plot. To create a box plot, all you have to do is drag a dimension out for how you want your different box plots to look like. Perhaps I want to break down my box plots by subcategory. I can take subcategory and drop it down on the column shelf. Perhaps I want to see a box plot based on my profit. I can go down to my measure shelf, drag profit, and place that on my row shelf. Right now, Tableau is summing up all the different profits for each of my subcategories. Maybe I'd like to break this down a little bit further, say something by state. I can take state and drag that to the level of detail shelf. Now, we have little bar charts for each and every individual state. That's not quite what I want. I actually don't want a bar chart, but perhaps rather a circle. I can add maybe a border to these circles. Perhaps I want to size these circles and make them a little bit smaller. Great, that looks good. Perhaps I want to even sort these circles. Now, I'd like to add some box plot elements. To add a box plot element, all I have to do is right-click on this y-axis and add a reference line. I can choose something such as a distribution, and I can choose a quantile and say OK. Now, notice what happens when I select Apply to my quantiles right now. We see that it's labeling things. Perhaps I don't want to label anything, so I'll just choose None. We'll see that it's applying across this whole pane, but I'd rather apply it for, say, just tables or just bookcases, etc., for each of these individual cells. Well, here I can choose to make it per cell. Now you'll notice that they're varying by cell. You'll notice that there's a dark gray and a light gray on top. Perhaps I want to change this fill color. Maybe I want it to be symmetric. So now it's just going to be one uniform gray. And maybe I want to add some lines. So I'm going to choose maybe a thin red dotted line. And we'll say Apply. That looks pretty good. I'll say OK. Now, perhaps I want to add something like my standard deviations. Now, there are a lot of assumptions that a statistician has to make to add these standard deviations, but we'll go ahead and add some anyway, just for the sake of understanding this. So we'll just add another distribution here. We'll choose per cell. We'll choose standard deviation. I can choose the standard deviations I want. You'll notice that we have two options here for standard deviations. We have a sample and a population. That just accounts for Bessel's correction, which is just simply a 1 over n minus 1 versus a 1 over n. So if you have large sample sizes versus small, you would choose one or the other accordingly. And again, I'll just choose no labels, a line. Perhaps we want a dashed line that's purple, maybe thin, and I don't want any fill. Let's play OK. Choose OK. Great. So now we have a nice Tableau box plot that shows us kind of the variability within our data. Perhaps I want to see, well, I can hover over this and say, oh, I can see that it's about 2 standard deviations from the mean is 28,815, but I'd like to see exactly how many standard deviations from the mean Louisiana is. Well, to do that, I can write a calculation for a z-score. This calculation is demonstrated and taught in the statistics calculation video. Here we're just going to assume that you've understood this calculation, also known as a standard score, and we're just going to go ahead and drop it onto the color shelf. Now you'll notice this isn't quite right. We notice some darker greens in the middle. What we can do is we right click on this and we want to compute it for each and every individual state, which is what each of these points are. So I'm going to choose state, and now we have the standard score. So now we can see this is 3.8 standard deviations away from the mean. Here we can see this is 4.2. So we can see all these standard deviations now, and it's nicely colored for us. If you don't want to circle, another nice option is the Gantt bar chart. And now you can kind of see it broken down by these little Gantt bars. Either way is perfectly fine. Now, what if you'd like to see this in a more traditional light? Well, let's go ahead and call this sheet our Tableau box plot. And let's create a new one to create that much more traditional box and whisker plot. To create a traditional box and whisker plot, all you have to do is go out to subcategory, drag profit onto the row shelf, and again we're brought to this view of the different subcategories broken down or aggregated up to the level of profit. And let's go ahead and break this down further by state, the level of detail. And now you'll notice that we have this broken down view again. Well, let's go ahead and choose something like a line. Now it's not quite what we want. In fact, if I choose state here, I can choose to make it on the path shelf. Now you can see, oh, we can see that nice kind of whisker look here. And again, we can add our reference lines as we see fit. So there's distributions per cell, quantile. We'll make it symmetric, add some red lines, and remove those computational labels. Okay? And then we can add the maxima and minima by adding another reference line. Again, per cell, we'll do the maxima. And the minima. There we go. So now we have a traditional box and whisker plot. Let's go ahead and name that a traditional box plot. Great. Well, now if we go back over here, we can see that there's a little bit more information within this box plot. And in fact, we could even access more information from this box plot if we so desire. To do that, all we have to do is go up to this worksheet and show the summary card. You can see the summary card has appeared to our right and is showing us the sum of all the different points in this view. If I select just a couple points, you notice everything changes in the summary card. It says you've selected 2 points, which is 0.3% of all the points on this view, and the sum of those 2 points is 21,000. The average of those 2 points is about 10,000. Maximum and the minimum of those 2 points is 10,000 and 11,000 respectively, and the median is 10,809. Great. We can add more details to the summary card just by using this drop-down menu and adding standard deviations. I can widen this a little bit. Maybe we want to see the first quartile, the third quartile, the skewness, and the excess kurtosis. Now as we select these different values, we can see, oh, this has a relatively large excess kurtosis. This is having a larger excess kurtosis. We can see the skew is 2.1. When we select something that's small, we can see it actually has negative excess kurtosis and a skewness of negative 0.1. What did this skew mean? When I select something like this here, we can see that there's a large, if I flip this here, we can kind of see this a little bit better. We can see these tails that go off to the right, and that's our skewness there. So you can see these tails indicate positive skew. Down here, We can see negative skewness, this tail is a leftward tail. So that's kind of the explanation of these different types of views. So you can see it's very easy in Tableau to create both these traditional box plots and these Tableau box plots, which allow you to see a little bit more data and the spread of your data. Feel free to use whichever one you find to be more applicable to your specific situations. Have a great day.